Welcome to another episode of Touring the AFC South. I'm your host, Mike Patton. And on this episode, we're going to keep digging into finding out more about Mr. Robert Saleh, just kind of the feelings and thoughts. He is coming from, San Francisco, of course. But before that, he was the head coach of the New York Football Jets. And I thought someone that could actually give a little bit more insight. I did have Antoine Staley come on from New York Daily News, but I wanted to have a little bit more insight. I believe I got the perfect person for it, Mr. Dexter Henry. What's going on, man?
What's up, Mike? Good to talk to you. Always good to talk some football with you, man. I hope you are well with the snow that is coming up the East Coast. But I'm good, man. Good to see you. Always good to see you, like I say.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Always good to see you, man. Got the black on black, man. Hey, I got to get that cap, man. The cap is nice.
Man. That's why I like my black and white or my navy and white Mets whenever I can rock it. So yeah, there we go.
All right, there you go. There you go. Now, of course, I brought you on to talk about Mr. Robert Saleh, but we're going to talk about your Steelers too now. Now, we're going to talk about them.
All right.
But first things first, got to talk about Robert Saleh. He is the new head coach of the Tennessee Titans. And to get to know the coach, you got to know their past as well. Of course, things can change from job to job as well. But, of course, when he became the coach of the New York Jets, people were talking about where he could go and him being a high priority for a lot of different teams. And he ended up with the New York Jets in 2021. What were kind of some of your thoughts when they brought him in as the new head coach of the New York Jets during that time?
At first, I remember thinking, you looked at his defensive background before he came to the Jets, and, you were like, okay, this is a guy who's going to bring some discipline and structure, Mike. That was the first thing you thought. And you immediately thought, look, he will elevate this defense. He will get this defense to be playing at a high level. And we could get into the fact that he did, because he absolutely did. If you look at the 22-23 season, he had them ranked number one in a bunch of defensive categories, including passing yards against. You can look at the players that developed or thrived under him, I'll say, whether it's two players who are no longer there, Quentin Williams, Sauce Gardner. You saw guys like that really go, and the defense was ferocious. So I looked at this as a really good hire for the Jets. But as somebody who's been in New York for a long time and has covered the Jets, with the Jets, it always is going to come down to, did they have a quarterback? And could he overcome that? One of the things I think is a concern with the Jets, because they have not had a lot of success and they have the longest playoff drought currently in North American sports, Mike, is that, all right, is it going to be a coach that's going to turn this around? You thought Robert Saleh could be this guy, but you're like, can he win in spite of the Jetsness, I will say, that is around them? But I thought it was a good hire. I think a lot of Jets fans thought it was a good hire. They thought he could be a really good leader. Unfortunately, it didn't work out that way. I'm somebody who is of the belief that, and I know we'll get into how it worked out, but I don't think much of it is on Robert Saleh as much. I think Robert Saleh is a good coach. I think you've seen the impact that he's had on defenses where he goes. I just don't think he had the quarterback. And I think if you have a quarterback like you may have, and I believe in down in Tennessee, with Cam Ward, I think he can actually cook. I really do believe that.
Yeah, he definitely he tried to cook, but the utensils and the supplies weren't necessarily the greatest on the offensive side of the ball, especially at the quarterback position. Starting off with Zach Wilson for the first couple of years, and then you get Aaron Rodgers. And of course, Aaron Rodgers, they made the concessions for him, flew out there to where he was in California, hired Nathaniel Hackett. Hired Nathaniel Hackett. You bring in different receivers like Lazard, and then you eventually bring in Devontae Adams. All these different things to, I guess, make Aaron Rodgers feel comfortable. But it never seemed like he got comfortable. First year, he's there in the first series, tears his Achilles, out for the year. And then the next year, doesn't even make it through 5 games with the Saleh and Rodgers pairing before he's fired. So I spoke to, and you could just see that there was something going on between those two. But just the tension between Aaron Rodgers and Robert Saleh. You could just kind of tell it, I don't know where it picked up, but it just seemed like it grew there as their time went on together.
The things you were hearing from people around the team, a lot of that was, I think, Saleh pushed. It goes into what you mentioned before. The Jets rolled out the red carpet for Aaron Rodgers. They acquiesced to him. They gave him everything that they wanted. Now, I will say what I thought at the time. And it's funny, I think you and I talked about this one time just off camera when you came on with me talking about something. And it was like, look, this was a lot to give a quarterback at his age. This was a lot to just give him and roll everything out. Now, the problem is the Jets, historically, if you look through the history, I mean, as long as I've been alive, they've never had a true franchise quarterback. And I'm 42 years old. So that is a problem for them. And Rodgers was looked at very much coming here as being the savior. Here was this team that had a really good defense. They couldn't get it done because of poor quarterback plays. You mentioned with Zach Wilson, who was terrible, right? The team rallied around that year. It was the 22-23 season when they switched over to Mike White. And everybody was like, well, Mike White really has rallied the locker room, which is a crazy statement to make when you think about it. So now they go all into Aaron Rodgers. And I think Robert Saleh, and this is what I've heard from some people, he's had his things of like, hey, this is the way I want to do this. And Aaron Rodgers, I think, was used to the rest of the organization acquiescing to him. And that's where you saw a little bit of clashing of that. That's problematic when the coach is not on the same page. They brought in his offensive coordinators. You mentioned Nathaniel Hackett. They brought in receivers like Lazard or Randall Cobb at a time to everything to acquiesce to him. But the problems were, particularly in that second season that you mentioned, where he just couldn't move. Listen, I've torn my Achilles. I did not play NFL football. I've torn my Achilles. That is a hard injury to come back from. It's a hard injury. You really have to trust things mentally in terms of just moving. So that was a really tough there. But I just think they clashed because Rodgers really, I think, was used to getting everything he wanted around the Jets. And Robert Saleh had his ways of wanting to do certain things and maybe push back a little bit. And I think that's where you saw some of that friction. Now, eventually, that was after that Vikings game in the 24-25 season, 5 games in, they get rid of Robert Saleh. Did I think I was shocked? I will be honest. I was shocked by that firing. I didn't think it was the right move. I do not think Robert Saleh was the problem. I think people will look at his record and say, oh, well, he was 20-36 with the Jets. That's fine. Look at what he did on defense. He did not have a quarterback in that time. The Jets lost a lot of games during the Robert Saleh era because of ineptitude offensively and poor quarterback play. They did not lose because of defense. Now, I understand in his final year of coaching, the last year he coached in those 5 games, the defense did not look good at that time. So I do understand that, especially the secondary did not look good. But I think Robert Saleh is a good coach. And I think if you give him a quarterback, this is what I really want to see with him in Tennessee. And I'm sure you want to see too, Mike, as somebody who covers the AFC South. I want to see what he can really do having someone like Cam Ward. And I think Cam Ward wants to win. I think Cam Ward cares a lot about winning. I know Tennessee's defense was not good. I think that defense will improve. I think Cam Ward cares a lot. I like that. I think he has the want to win. And I think that's going to work well with someone like Robert Saleh. Cam Ward strikes me as somebody who wants to be coached hard, who wants to be pushed hard. So I think that's going to work really well with Robert Saleh. I think he's a good fit. I think he's a good culture changer. I just want to see what I like you said, he didn't have utensils. He didn't have utensils to cook. I think he's got the utensil, the main one or the main ingredient, if you want to say that. I think he's got that in Cam Ward. So I'm very intrigued to see how he could cook with that. And I think their relationship is going to be fine.
Yeah, definitely. Cam Ward is a guy that likes to be coached hard, doesn't like to be coddled. I will say, as far as Robert Saleh, I would say he kind of helped Aaron Rodgers, I think, feel emboldened with the organization when they flew out there and he basically hired Nathaniel Hackett. Probably not his first hire, but first person he wanted to hire as offensive coordinator, but he made the move anyway. And I think when that started happening, that kind of started the ball rolling on, the decision making and things like that. And as far as just Tennessee defensively, they're going to switch to a 4-3. They've been in a 3-4 for like years.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be interesting just to see what they're able to build in terms of bringing in defensive end or edge rushers. I think a guy that should keep is Jihad Ward, which he was a kind of a journeyman kind of guy, but he fit in well with what Tennessee was doing, and he can put his hand in the dirt or stand up.
He can.
And the biggest guy that I think that you didn't mention was Jeffrey Simmons. Jeffrey Simmons had a career year last year, 11 and a half sacks as an interior defensive lineman. That's great. So to me, you have him, you have Tavondre Sweat as your two defensive tackles. You're starting pretty good up front, stopping the run right there. So just got to kind of build with the edge guys. You've got Cedric Gray, who had over 130 tackles, I think, at an inside linebacker in his second year in the league. So they've got pieces. It's just a matter of bringing all those collective pieces together. And I think Robert Saleh is going to be able to bring the best out of those pieces. Just, I guess, my general thought. And then, like you said, offensively, it's going to be interesting to see what Cam Moore can do, especially going to be interesting to see who they hire as offensive coordinator because, you know, the name Brian Dable has been mentioned. Mike McDaniel was mentioned, but of course, it looks like he's going to be going to the Los Angeles Chargers. There's still names out there. Like I mentioned, one was Bobby Slowick, the former offensive coordinator for the Texans before he got fired and blamed for CJ Stroud's regression. And then you have
not his fault, but yes.
Right. And then you've got some other guys out there. I mean, there is a really deep Mike or Kyle Shanahan tree of people he can pull from. That could actually be the offensive coordinator. So it's going to be interesting to watch and see. I'm very interested to see where that leads.
Mike, I wanted to say something that you mentioned that I thought was really good. You just said you were talking about where things probably deteriorated with Saleh and Rodgers. You said the first mistake was him bringing on Nathaniel Hackett as the coordinator. And I agree with you, right? Because once you really see that power, it's not even just about bringing in Lazard and, other players. But once you see that power to him and to try to make him comfortable, I want to be very clear. I'm not saying there's a time to not do that for guys. I'm saying you're doing this for an aging quarterback at the time, which is what the Jets were getting. I think it's a great point that you make. To that point, what I just want to say is this is what desperate franchises do. Is when you make those mistakes, you put all the eggs in one basket, you show that you are desperate, right? And you're not making we talk about head coaches being the leaders of men. We hear that phrase all the time. Well, when you do that, you're kind of undercutting the coach. And this is also, or I'm not going to put it just on Robert Saleh, it's an organizational decision. You lose some of that power and maybe some of that respect that you might have. So I think it's a great point by you in what started the downwardness of that relationship. And, I think that's something that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen in Tennessee. I think just because of the way Cam Ward is wired and he wants to be coached, as we both mentioned. And Robert Saleh, I think, is going to be excited about coaching him.
Yeah, a lot of people have mentioned he's I'm not saying this. I'm just saying what I have heard on these internet streets. They have mentioned Mike Vrabel Light a lot. So that's interesting to hear that one.
Yeah, one of the things that you hear about Saleh, and I remember hearing about when he's here, he's very disciplined to the craft. He's very meticulous, paying attention to detail and communicating with his players. I'll be honest, with his time here, I didn't hear any players talking about they didn't like him or didn't like what he did. I remember players being very accountable and upset when he was fired, saying this wasn't on him, this was on us. I didn't hear that about Saleh and his relationships in the building. You heard more about Rodgers on the way out and his relationships with people in the building than you did about Robert Saleh. And by all accounts, he goes back to San Francisco. He does a fantastic job with that defense this year, especially when you consider, look at what he did with his defense with the injuries that the Niners had. That's the impressive thing to me. And I think that's a huge part of why he's getting another coaching chance. And look, some guys just get put in tough situations. I do think Robert Saleh deserves another chance, Mike. And, I think guys can learn things from their first time. And in some ways, I think in Tennessee, he's just in a better situation, if I'm being completely honest. I just think it's situation. We don't talk about that enough, even with coaches. Situation and fit matters. And I think because of what you said about some guys that showed out on the Tennessee defense, even though I know they didn't stop a lot of people all the time, but there were some games the Titans were in where they made it ugly. And I just think Robert Saleh is going to add pieces and be able to get the most out of that defense. Like, I expect the Tennessee defense to take a big jump next year. I would say look for that. And if the offense takes an incremental jump, how many games did the Titans win this year? They win 3, 4?
Like 3 games, yeah.
3 games, right? I don't think. Listen, Saleh's the kind of coach. If you see them competitive and they win, say they double their win total, or they get to 7 games, that's huge. He's the kind of guy I could see doing that in year 1. And if Cam Ward's looking better, the defense is looking better, Titans fans should be encouraged. I think he's that kind of guy. He can absolutely do that.
Yeah, he definitely can. I mean, I'm looking forward to just the energy and the vibe that he brings, and of course, he's going to bring that accountability. To that team, which is going to be interesting to see. I'm just double checking myself here to make sure they did win. They won 3-14. I was double checking myself. I was like, I know they won. I believe they won 3 games. I just want to double check and see. But yeah, speaking of a team that a leader of men, that would be Mr. Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin, after 19 years, decided it is time to step down. Of course, what are your thoughts on him, being that you are a Pittsburgh Steelers fan? What are your thoughts on his coaching career, and did his stepping down kind of surprise you?
The stepping down did not surprise me. And I'll get back to that in a second. I was watching the game against the Texans, which was a terrible fourth quarter to watch.
Oh man, it was rough.
It was rough for the Steelers fans. And at the end of that game, I was sitting with 2 of my friends who were both Steelers fans, and I said to them, yeah, I think this is it for Tomlin. And I said it in a way, not that I thought he should be fired, because I didn't. I just said, I think he walks away from this. I think Mike Tomlin, to some degree, was underappreciated in Pittsburgh. I think Mike Tomlin is a great coach. I think he's undoubtedly a Hall of Fame coach. I think what James Harrison said is nonsense. I think he's absolutely a Hall of Fame coach. He is undeniably the best black coach in NFL history. He is an example when you look at how the Steelers were able to hire him when they did with the Rooney Rule. This is a guy who was interviewed by the Dolphins, and they didn't go with him because they thought he was too hip hop.
That is nuts. That's nuts, Steven.
Which is a wild story, kind of not surprising coming from any NFL ownership at the time, but it's crazy. And he, the Steelers, who obviously the Rooney family had started the Rooney Rule, they had interviewed Ron Rivera that year. Then they were impressed with what they heard about Mike Tomlin. Oh, he was a really good interview. They brought him in. The rest is history. It shows you what can happen. It's not just about black coaches getting jobs, right, Mike? It's about the fact that, can they get the I want to be clear on this, the real chances to interview, right? And get opportunities to be in front of people and show what they could do. And obviously Mike Tomlin showed what he could do, going to 2 Super Bowls, winning 1, the whole thing. I think he does not get enough credit for actually what he did in the last 5 to 6 years. I've been saying this. Mike Tomlin in the last 5 seasons was doing the Lord's work out there. He had, since Ben Roethlisberger retired, right? You look at some of the quarterbacks they had out there: Mason Rudolph, Duck Hodges, Kenny Pickett.
Yikes.
I'm forgetting somebody.
No, that's Kenny Smallhands, man. Kenny Smallhands. Let's go. Kenny Smallhands.
You know, it's funny. I'm not going to disrespect the Pitt alum. I'm not a fellow Pitt alum. I'm not going to do that. But y'all could call him Kenny Smallhands. Oh, Mitch Trubisky. I forgot about Mitch Trubisky. Yeah. I forgot about, right? Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson on the decline, and Justin Fields. And he still got this team to the playoffs all the time. And I just talked about the importance of a quarterback with Robert Saleh. He did not have a quarterback. I would have loved to have seen what Tomlin could have done in those 5 years if he had a good or up-and-coming young quarterback. I would have loved to have seen what he could do. But the fire Tomlin chants were getting a lot. It was becoming a discourse among the fan base. I went to the game, Sunday night game against the Green Bay Packers in Pittsburgh this year, and a couple of fans came up to me and asked me, hey, do you think Mike Tomlin should be fired? And at the time, I was like, no, I never thought he should have been fired. And the Steelers weren't going to fire him. I think the Steelers organization valued him. I think, and I'm not saying all fans, but I think a good amount of fans, particularly out in Pittsburgh, did not value him as much as they should. I think that he's a great coach. I'm glad he went out on his terms, though. That I'm happy about. I'm happy he went out on his terms. I'm confident the Steelers will hire, the whoever they hire next. I think they'll go with a younger coach who's ready to step in. I personally, we'll get into that more about what I think. But yeah, Mike Tomlin, man, one of the greats. Appreciative of him. I think he means a lot to people who love the Steelers. I think he means a lot to Black people who are NFL fans, particularly what he's been able to do. Because, like I said, you name me the Black coach. He is the greatest Black coach in the history of the NFL, hands down. There's nobody even in that stratosphere. Now, the hope is I want to see who the next Mike Tomlin is going to be. And the next Mike Tomlins, hopefully there's more opportunities. But I also will say I think it mattered that he was with an organization that took a chance on him when he was young, that stood by him, and I think still was going to stand by him. Mike Tomlin's a damn good coach. You heard how the players reacted when he told them the news. They were emotional. Mike Tomlin's a great coach. He's one of the great coaches. To never have a losing season is crazy. To have made the playoffs, like I said, in 4 of the last 5 years when he did not have a really good quarterback, it's just a testament of how good of a coach he was. He's so good of a coach, the Steelers could never get bad to tank. That's how good of a coach he is. And I have a feeling it might happen, and this might be good for the Steelers because then you take some steps back and find their quarterback. But I think people are going to realize in a year or two, like, man, we really had it good with that Mike Tomlin. You know what I'm saying? You want to get back out in these coaching dating streets, and you realize the game is not so easy out here. You know what I mean? So that's something I think that's going to be interesting. But Mike Tomlin's legacy, man, especially in Pittsburgh, he's one of the greats. He's one of the greats of all time. And there's nobody that's going to tell me otherwise. I don't think he lost his fastball or what some people say. I just think he didn't have a quarterback. Nobody's cooking in this league without a quarterback, hands down.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I like to call him. I'll say this.
Yeah,
I used to call Bill Belichick the MacGyver of NFL coaches. They just figure things out. But I have to change and give that title to Mike Tomlin, because if you look at all the different things that Pittsburgh was missing when it came to a breakout wide receiver, or when it come to a star in the secondary at times.
Yep.
He found a way to make it work. He's just like, he went in there. It's just like MacGyver used to be back in the day. And some people listening to this show probably don't know
idea what MacGyver is.
But just look it up. MacGyver can make anything happen. He can make a weapon out of anything. And that is exactly how Mike Tomlin was as a coach to me. And of course, I think that'll be part of his legacy as well. Being a guy that could, make things work. You give him this, he's going to find a way to make it productive and positive, even when sometimes it doesn't look as aesthetically pleasing. So yeah, definitely was a guy that I'm definitely going to miss him coaching. But a deep question for you: do you see him coaching again?
No, I don't. As I was just saying, this last night to somebody. I'll never say, if I had to put money on it, I say no. I think he's done. I think he's going to be a lot like Cowher. We thought Cowher was going to come back, and he didn't. I think Mike Tomlin, you've seen him now. He's been at his daughter's gymnast. I think it's at Illinois, and he's been out there.
Georgia. I think she said Georgia.
Georgia. Sorry, Georgia.
I think she said Georgia.
That's 2 totally different places. I don't even know how to mix that up. I think he looks happy. He's enjoying life. His kids are grown. His legacy is set in Pittsburgh. Listen, I think if he wants to and has the itch, he'll come back. If I had to bet on it, I don't have any inside information. Nah, I think Mike Tomlin's. I think he's done. I think the next time we see him, he's getting put in the Steelers Ring of Honor. And that'll be a funny day because some of the people there will shouting, "Fire Mike Tomlin" or "Get him out of here" are gonna have to cheer him. But yeah, if I had to bet on it, I think he's done. And you know, again, I'm happy for him in that. I love when people find their peace. I love when people go out on their own terms, like he did.
Mhm.
And yeah, you know, I think he knew it was time. And I think after that Texans game, I personally knew it was time for him. That's where
Mhm.
not that I thought he couldn't coach anymore. I just was like, you know what, Mike, you've done everything you can. I like your term, Mike. You've MacGyvered this a ton of times, and I don't think everybody appreciates you the way that you should. Time to just walk away. The
Mhm.
players appreciated him. I think the organization greatly appreciated him. Um,
Mhm.
and yeah, but if I had to, I love that you asked a question. I had to bet Mike. I don't think he's coaching again.
Okay, so moving on to the new coaches. There's been some names mentioned. Chris
Yep.
Shula, defensive
Mm-hmm.
coordinator of the Rams. You've got Nate Shieldhouse, passing game coordinator for the Rams, and you got Mike McCarthy that got mentioned, which that kind of threw me off a little bit. But then I heard the history, and I'm like, oh, okay, makes sense. I know there's other coaches that have their name thrown in there as well, but of these three guys, what is your ranking order of those three guys if you had to pick from those three?
So I'm gonna say
I know
this.
who's probably going to be number three. I know who's going to probably be number three, but go ahead.
So my number one is somebody you haven't even mentioned. Um,
Okay.
the number one guy I would love to see get the next job as head coach of the Steelers is Brian Flores.
I knew you were going to say him. I knew it. I
I
knew you were going to say
I would love it for Brian Flores. He was in the building
uh
2 seasons ago. Special assistant to defense. I forgot his exact role. I think it
mhm,
mattered that the Steelers had brought him in. The Tomlin had brought him in. He's obviously done a great job with the Vikings defense. Now I know he signed that contract with the Vikings, but they do have an out for him that if he gets a job in this coaching cycle, he can leave. So he's got some security.
mhm.
I only believe the teams that have interviewed him are the Steelers and the Ravens. And the Ravens obviously
The
may have made
Steelers and
their hire.
Ravens, yeah.
Yeah, they made their hire with Jesse Minter. Um, I would love Flores, but that he'd be at the top of my list. Coming in
Mhm.
at number 3 with the people that you said, Mike, and I want to see if you were clairvoyant here and knew who I was going with. Mike McCarthy for me is number 3.
I know it. I know it.
Now, I think the locals are going to love Mike McCarthy in Pittsburgh. They'd like him.
Mhm.
You know, he's got Pittsburgh ties. They'd like to see him in there.
Your dad owns a bar there, I think, or owns a
Yeah,
bar there.
I don't care
Mhm.
about none of that. I don't care about none of that, Mike. I'm not saying Mike McCarthy is a bad coach. I just want to be very clear on what I'm saying.
Mhm.
I just think that the Steelers, when they're doing this reset, they need to do it. I think they've pretty much done in their career, just get a younger coach who they're going to let come in, grow into the position. And that's why I think of someone like a Brian Flores, who's 44, or you know, the other names that you mentioned, Shula or Steelhace, also is there. I'm gonna say if I had to rank those other two, so I got McCarthy third.
Mhm.
I'm actually gonna go. This is probably gonna surprise some people. I'm gonna put Shula second.
I knew you were
Um,
going there.
and I like Shula, but and this I'm not contradicting myself here, but I feel like if they're going to go younger than even Brian Flores, I actually would love the Steelers to switch it up a little bit. They traditionally have gone with a defensive coach.
Mhm.
I'd like to see him go with a more offensive minded coach. And I'd like Skill Hayes, who's done a great job in the passing game for the Rams. I've read his story about how he's elevated himself up. He's supposedly a very attention to detail guy, has great relationships with the players on the offensive side of the ball. We know it's
Mhm.
Steelers. I understand it's Pittsburgh, Blitzburgh, the whole thing. Defense is always going to be part of their identity. But I do think they need to modernize a little bit more offensively.
Mhm.
So I wouldn't be mad if they said, hey, you know, we're going to go with a young guy with a different offensive mind. Maybe let's change it up in how we're doing. A little change wouldn't bother me out of the 3 you mentioned. So if they hired Shula, wouldn't be mad at it.
Mhm.
If they hired Steelhace, wouldn't be mad at it either. But I really would want Brian Flores. I also really want them to hire Brian Flores for another reason, to stick it to the NFL with his lawsuit. And I think it matters that the Steelers, the Vikings, are teams that have employed him over the last
Mhm.
3 seasons. And he's been getting interviews, and it's like, why? If any team was going to hire Brian Flores, the Steelers, who hired Mike Tomlin, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the people who helped start the Rooney Rule with the late great Johnny Cochran, it would be so apropos that they hired Brian Flores, who absolutely positively deserves another coaching chance. I understand people are going to say he was 24-25 with the Dolphins. His last 2 seasons were winning seasons. Those were the first back-to-back winning seasons at the time since 2003 for the Dolphins. And what have the Dolphins really done in the last 30 years? So better than like when Brian Flores was coaching them. So I think Brian Flores is a good coach. You've never heard anything bad about him in terms of dealing with players. I think he'd be fine in Pittsburgh. I'd love to see it. But out of 3 you ranked, I'm actually going to go. Maybe it shocks you. Skill Hayes, Shula, McCarthy. That's how I'd go.
Now, funny thing is, Stillhouse actually was the actual quarterback for the University of Illinois at one point in time. I still remember when he was actually the quarterback, because I know who one of his running backs was?
Think about the time he was there. Tell me who.
Mendenhall. Mendenhall was one of his running backs, actually, I believe.
Wow.
Yeah, I believe so.
Wow. That's crazy.
So there's your Pittsburgh connection.
There's
right
a little
there.
Pittsburgh connection there. A little Rashad Mendenhall there. Okay. That's I think, listen, if you're gonna go young with offense. I would like him. I wouldn't mind it. The Steelers also they're not gonna rush this process. I mean, I think it's likely they announce their coach sometime. It could be this week or before the Super Bowl. I think that'll happen. But I could see it being this week. I hope. I kind of hope it's not McCarthy. Look, if it's McCarthy, it'll be fine. I just kind of hope it's not. It doesn't seem the Steelers' way. I just wish they'd go with somebody younger. I like the Steelers' way. Let somebody young, let them grow into the job, and let them rebuild this with a quarterback. And they'll have time in Pittsburgh to do it. Yeah, that's my. I'm not trying to be an ageist, but that's what I would like to see.
I hear you. I understand. I mean, the one thing about McCarthy, I think a lot of people miss too, is McCarthy. Of course, he had Aaron Rodgers. He won 1 championship with Aaron Rodgers.
Yep.
But the thing also over the years is he hasn't evolved as a coach. He did say he evolved when he went to the Cowboys, but he ended up doing some of the same things again. And I wonder if he was to come in with the Pittsburgh Steelers, would he still try to say, hey, my way works, as opposed to accepting and evolving with the current NFL the way it is now. So,
oh wow,
that's my thoughts on that.
Hold on, we just got breaking news. The Steelers are hiring Mike McCarthy as their next head coach. Adam Schefter just reported the Steelers plan to hire Mike McCarthy as their next head coach. As we're doing this,
I'm kind of shocked by this.
I am too.
Wow. Oh, I know a certain somebody that's not going to like this either. Wow.
I'm not. Look, I'm always going to write. I don't like it. Yeah. I'm not a fan of this.
I know somebody else that isn't going to be a fan of this either. And you know who I'm talking about. He was just recently on with me.
Oh, he will not be a fan of that. Yes.
Oh no. So this is going to be interesting. Wow. I don't know what to say to that. I really have nothing to say with that one.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy being live, and we just talked about this, and I just happened to glance at my phone.
Wow.
And I saw this alert.
Wow. Well, good luck, Steelers fans, with Mike McCarthy, and we'll see what happens there as we end the show on the somber note for Dexter.
It is somber, Mike. I'm trying. It is somber. I'm a little. I'm trying to. It's funny reacting to stuff.
I'm bringing out the tissue for you, man.
I'm a little shocked at I'm a little shocked at them going in this direction. This feels like a safe hire.
They'll be back hiring a coach again. Honestly, I'm not. I keep wondering if he's going to make it past a certain amount of years there, because this kind of goes way against the grain what they usually would do.
Here, I agree. Here's what also scares me about this. And as I'm processing all this in real time, you bring back Mike McCarthy, makes me feel like you might do the dumb thing of trying to bring back Aaron Rodgers, which I want.
That's where I was getting ready to go.
I want no parts of that, Mike. I don't think it's a good move to bring Aaron Rodgers back. You listen, because when you heard everything I said, and even with Mike Tomlin and my love for Mike Tomlin and all that, you got to move forward. You got to move forward. And if you're going back with Mike McCarthy, you just mentioned as a coach who you did not see really evolve in Dallas from his time in Green Bay. And then Aaron Rodgers. I just want to ask you this, Mike. You cover the AFC South. You know it as well as anybody I know. Right? And we know that Texans defense is dope. That Texans defense is a monster. Okay. When you watch that game against the Steelers, did Aaron Rodgers look cooked to you or not?
Yeah, it looked like it was over. It looked like he was already kind of out the door in the last game of the season.
And he willed some things against Baltimore, right? He willed some things, but you could see it was like just dragging it there. There, I was just like, that's a man out there that can't move. He can still make throws. There's no doubt about that. But he can't move. There was a play I can't remember if it was a Ravens game or the Texans game because it's all blurred to me now. I think it was the Texans game. There's a play where he ran outside the pocket and he had the angle, but didn't take it and still threw the ball away. And I said, oh, no.
I got another one in that game, I believe, too. He ran out of the pocket. And he had the angle to get the first down on the sideline. It was like third down, but he stopped and tried to I don't know what move he tried to do, but it didn't do anything. It was in slow motion. And the guy was right on him right there. And I'm like, why didn't he just keep running towards the sideline? He would have maybe had the first down.
If you, to your point, I'm so glad to talk to you. We can react to this in real time. To your point, if you said you think the Steelers will be looking for another head coach in a couple of years, and I'm like, yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you. Mike McCarthy is 62 years old. Does Mike McCarthy have it in him to do a rebuild of this team? The defense is getting older. You don't have a quarterback of the future, at least that we see on this roster right now.
You mean you don't believe in Will Howard, man? I'm joking.
No. Here's the thing. Will Howard could be that dude, and I don't know. Could be. Would I be mad if the Steelers went into the season and we saw Will Howard through OTAs, depending on what they do in the draft and all that stuff, and they went in with him? I'm not mad at it because either you're going to find out what he is or is not. I don't want to see. I know what Aaron Rodgers is. I know what the ceiling and limitations are with Aaron Rodgers. And here's what I'll tell you. Even if you throw Aaron Rodgers back there and you bring back most of the same team, you think they're going to do better than what they did under Tomlin this year? I don't.
Nope.
I don't. There's no reason for me to believe that. In fact, I might be inclined to say they'll probably do worse. They'll be 8-9. That's what it sounds like. Mike McCarthy and bringing Aaron Rodgers back feels like 8-9. And for all the folks that complained about Mike Tomlin, it's my thing with the Steelers, and this is why I want to know the play. Are we moving forward or are we not? That's the thing. Are we moving forward or not? Steelers are a good organization, so they usually get these things right. But I just think for the long term, what are we doing here? I don't like this. I need to know. Look, I always will say I need to know more information. What are you doing at quarterback? The whole thing. I would like to see them draft somebody. I wouldn't mind them bringing in somebody that you knew in Tennessee for a little bit. If they brought in like Malik Willis as a stopgap quarterback for a couple of years, who I thought played really good back and quarterback roles for Green Bay, I wouldn't mind that. But why not do that with a younger coach?
Yeah, oof. Man, I don't know what to tell you on that one. Boy.
Mike is like, good luck. Mike is like, good luck, brother. Good luck.
Boy, I will say this though: we will see them in Nashville this year. The Pittsburgh Steelers will be here in Nashville this year. So
I might have to come. I might have to come down and make a trip and see you and watch the game or something. But you might see me angry. You might see me sad. So I don't know if you want to see that, Mike.
As long as you don't become the Incredible Hulk, we'll be okay.
Nah, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that to you, brother. I would never do that to you. You're good.
But yeah, man, definitely some breaking news I didn't expect to happen today. But hey, Mike McCarthy's the new head coach, or reportedly the new head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Dexter Henry is befuddled and confused by this one. I can just tell by the look on your face of like, wow, he's blown away by this move, and not in a good way.
Yeah, I rarely even overreact to coaching hires or just come out and say, and I tweeted, I don't like this hire. I rarely do that because I'm like, oh, wait and see. You don't know. I don't know. Who knows? Mike McCarthy could be the best coach since sliced bread. I don't think so. I think we have enough tape on that. But yeah, befuddled is a good word, Mike. That's a great word to describe this. Befuddled.
Yeah. Well, one thing we do know, drinks are going to be on him and his bar. We know that. But
that is true. That is true.
All right. Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Dexter Henry, for coming on the show. Can you tell everyone where they can find you, find your work, and everything, all that?
Yeah, man. Mike, thank you as always. You can find my work with the New York Post Sports YouTube channel. Host a bunch of shows there. I know if you're a football fan, I don't do a football show, but I do a basketball show on the Knicks called New York Got Game. Baseball show on the Mets called Straight Out of Flushing, and a WNBA show on the New York Liberty called Liberty Lately. So I host those shows. Those are fun there. You can find me at DHenryTV on all social media platforms. Always a pleasure coming on with you, my brother Mike. I love what you do with the show, and I've had you on, and I'm sure we'll talk more as the Steelers play the AFC South this year. Hopefully they don't go 0-4. That'd be bad. So hopefully that's
they're gonna win one of them, man. They're gonna win one of them. But hey, I do got an idea for you for a show, but we'll mention that off here. But
we'll have to talk. There we go.
Definitely. Of course, thank you all for tuning in. My name is Mike Patton, host of Touring the AFC South. You can find me on the artist formerly known as Twitter at Mike Patton82. That's MikePatton 82. You can also find me on Instagram and Threads at that's THA, not THE _general_MP. Of course, Touring the AFC South on all listening platforms. That'd be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, you name it, we are there. And also on the Mike Patton YouTube channel as well. Thank you all for tuning in to this episode of Touring the AFC South. We're out. Peace.